Finally, I've actually got an excuse for being shit-faced during a review. Hooray! Now, even massive beer fans would have to admit that creating your own home brew is a needlessly complicated way of creating something that's frankly easily obtainable. It kind of feels like persuading a whole bunch of your mates to dress up as small, colourful creatures and then run around in the forests having a hijinks adventure, occasionally bursting into song, when instead you could just stick on the Trolls movies. But the whole concept of homebrew may have just been rebooted, as long as you're willing to spend a bit of cash to circumvent some of the more tricky bits. So say hello to the iGulu F1, a wonderful wee machine that magically spaffs out fresh cold beer. Like, frankly, if this thing could also pump out crispy fried chicken on demand, I'd probably marry it, or at least jump straight into the heavy petting. Of course, using the iGulu F1 to create your own beer is still undeniably more complicated than simply popping off down the co-op for a 12-pack of Stella. But seriously, compared with regular home brewing, it's an absolute piece of piss. Even a disinterested 6-year-old or an ant out of Ant and Dec could probably do it. And unlike regular home brewing, the results can't also be used to strip, paint, or grit your driveway in the winter. Now, the iGulu F1 has literally just finished crafting the first batch of Spurt juice, so let's give it a gan. Tech Spurt Weekly! Now, for the iGulu F1's virgin voyage, I decided to play it safe. I just went with the pre-packaged Pale Ale Brewing Kit. I do love how the wee hop guy is looking very chilled. He's about to drink a beer that's literally bigger than him, thus actually probably making him a cannibal of sorts. This comes with all the ingredients you need to brew your first batch of beer, minus a few pints of proud British tap water, of course. So all you got to do is open up the iGulu and chuck in a load of that water, and then everything in the pack. Your hops, your dry brewing yeast, your priming sugar, etc. And this will create your wort, which, fair play, looks about as appetizing as James Corden in a G-string with his nipples smothered in Marmite. But in a little over a week, the iGulu F1 will magically transform this scum juice into precious booze. And it's not quite up to Jesus levels as far as miracles go, but at least you don't have to be the son of God to pull it off. Now just switch on the machine, sit back and wait for around 8 to 9 days while your beer ferments. To help pass time, you might want to drink lots of alcohol that actually already exists. Got a handy timer on that dinky display which counts down the number of days until your booze is ready for consumption, and also shows interesting info like your temperature and your pressure levels if you actually care about any of that. In fact, it's generally quite a quiet machine, although towards the end of the fermenting process it did occasionally kick into life and give a good hearty rumble for around 20 minutes or so, kind of similar to one of your mum's favourite bedtime toys. And then finally, after 9 days, in the case of the pale ale, that happy juice is ready to sample. So let's see what this thing spurts out. Let's get it on. Oh. So that first pint is, it's a wee bit for me. In honour of the substantial amount of head going on here, I'm going to call this first batch a weekend at your mum's. Alright, the worst of the head there has died down at last, so now it's time for the important part, the taste test. That's alright, that. The iGulu can keep your brew fresh for around a month in total, so there's no rush to smash an entire batch in just 2.5 hours like I may have possibly just done. However, the iGulu certainly isn't cheap. It'll cost you $749 for this bad boy, and that doesn't even include the ingredients or the old CO2 canister, which you'll need to bung in the back to keep the pressure up. But anyway, yes, if you do want to do a bit of home brewing using the iGulu F1, it certainly ain't cheap. You're going to have to brew an awful lot of the golden nectar in order to make this thing cost effective, which I'm absolutely down for. But of course, the real joy of home brewing is crafting your own concoction. So for my next batch, brewed with the iGulu F1, I'm going to go a bit off-piste. I reckon I'm going to try a lager with a healthy dose of kebab meat mixed in. Taking a bit of inspiration from Vidal Sassoon right there. Why take 2 bottles into the shower, etc. Or why bother struggling your way through an 11 PM Deliveroo order when you can get a healthy dose of that juicy meat action right there in your favourite beverage. Anyway, that right there, my lovelies, is the iGulu F1 Brewing Bastard. So definitely let us know what you think down in the comments below, and you'll find some more info on how to get your very own in the video description. And now it's time for the part of the show that I'll certainly need several more pints of this to get through. It's viewer comments. Viewer comments. Alrighty then, it's actually the day after I shot that iGulu stuff. I enjoyed reviewing that thing so much I actually forgot to shoot the rest of this video. I'm going to battle through my foamy hangover to smash through as many of your comments as possible from last week, starting with Jed Bullet, who says, "You had me at inappropriately gropey." Yeah, just continuing that fine tradition of 1970s British TV culture in my own little way. Of course, that said, there's absolutely nout around here to grope anyway, apart from Veronica, obviously. And even then, I'm kind of limited. And give her a proper face feel up. I'm Brian Brain says, "I'm Czech and we have some solid beers." Bears? Beers? I'm going to assume you're meant to say beers there, although you might have bears in the Czech Republic too. My memories of it are pretty hazy, mostly because of the very solid beers. Or perhaps I was just concussed in a surprise bear attack. But no, I sadly haven't visited Czech Republic in a while, hopefully again soon, but certainly some solid lagers and lagery type beers. I remember one of the first ones I ever drank before I even visited Prague or anywhere over there was good old Staropramen, which for some reason was absolutely massive here in like the early 2000s. It's in quite a lot of pubs. I remember it used to be the posh pint that you would order if you fancied something a bit stronger than bloody Carlsberg, but not quite as fighty as Stella. Got to admit, I haven't had one in like 20 years or so now, so I'm not sure if it was actually any good or if we just liked it because it got you nice and f***ed. My favourite one when I was over in Prague, I think it began with a Z, and I seem to recall it was completely unpronounceable for monolingual heathens like myself. I'll try and Google this. Czech beers beginning with Z. I've accidentally typed in Czech beets beginning with Z. Apparently beetroot salad is very big over there. Or maybe I'm thinking of Krusovici? It's got little umlauts and stuff over some of the letters. Once you've got umlauts in there, I'm basically f***ed. CME Deer says, "Dr. Pepper, it is the drink of the chosen after all." I gotta say, I do love me some Docky Peas. DPs? That just sounds like double penetration. I know it is a bit of an opinion divider, to say the least, the old Dr. Peppers. Some people seem to think it tastes like cold bin juice, but it's the only soft drink I've ever actually had a proper insatiable craving for. Again, it was about 20 years ago. I might have been hitting the Staropromens really hard. It was about 4 a.m, lying in bed, desperately in need of dehydration. And for some reason, I just really craved Dr. Pepper, even though I hadn't had it in probably years by that point. And it actually got so bad, I had to get up, I had to get semi-dressed and stagger my way down to the Tesco Metro or whatever the 24-hour garage mini-mart thing was just down the road and buy myself a 6-pack of Dr. Pepper. And I really never had that craving again, but yeah, like, does that happen to other people, or am I just a f***ing weirdo? Next up, Maraki Basan says, "Are you sick? You look a little sick. Is everything okay? Jesus effing Christmas." Thank you for your concern. I'm not sick as far as I'm aware. I'm usually just super hungover, and that combined with my pallid expression and the fact that I tend to sweat even in 0-degree weather means I can come across as being somewhat on death's doorstep. Lots of discussion all about MD 2020, which was raised in last week's episode. Taxi Trekkin says, "Spurt, have you seriously not heard of MD 2020? Its nickname was Mad Dog. As a teen, a bottle of Mad Dog and 10 Berkeley were commonplace as we hung out at the local Red Wreck." And Phil Giblin says, MD Mad Dog 2020. In the early 90s in North London, my mates and I would have it as a breakfast drink, which thinking back now explains a lot." I mean, apparently it's got fruit in it, or at least something that was created in a lab by someone who was vaguely thinking about fruit at the time, so it's probably not the worst breakfast you could have. I mean, it probably won't f*** your insides quite as hard as a Pop-Tart, for instance. But yeah, I don't think that MD 2020 ever made it to Sunderland in the 90s. I just remember the classics like VK, WKD, Smirnoff Ice, of course. I remember drinking some sort of other concoction in a bottle called Red Pig as well, I believe it was. It claimed it was a vodka drink. It was probably about 90% petroleum and 10% pig piss. Myclo15 Miklo 94 says, "Mad Dog 2020, peppermint schnapps and skull vodka, all the cheap alcohol in high school kickback parties." Peppermint schnapps sounds exactly like the kind of drink you would find buried away at the very back of your parents' booze cupboard, completely unopened with an expiry date of 1974. I don't know about you, but I really don't want to be reminded of brushing my teeth as I'm getting smashed. I remember my parents always used to bring me back bloody lemon schnapps. Oh no, peach schnapps whenever they f***ed off to Spain every single time. So disgusting stuff. Not that it stopped me drinking it, obviously. Now, last week had a lovely old discussion about Xperia smartphones, specifically the Xperia 10 Mark VI, which was actually launched this Tuesday by Sony. Lots of correspondence on the matter. So for instance, Ty David says, imagine if the head of Sony Mobile woke up one day, looked at what Google are offering with the Pixel 7a and said, you know what, maybe we should invest in some auto mode image processing, and maybe we should put a mid-range processor in our £400 phone, and maybe we should add wireless charging like some others at this price point. But nah, they'll keep tweaking a broken phone until the mobile division collapses. You paint a pretty bleak picture there, mate, but yeah, I was hoping for a bit more beef than the Snapdragon 6 Gen 1, and some of the other specs are kind of lagging behind other mid-range rivals. But hey, as always, your Uncle Spurt is remaining positive and optimistic, kiddies. You know, the Xperia 10 might be absolutely bloody great, won't know for sure until I've actually got one stashed in my pants. And hey, at least it's practically £1,000 cheaper than the Xperia 1 Mark 6, so, you know, silver linings, etc. Another long comment from Brady E21 Plays Indie Horror, who says, why are they making another one? They needed a design overhaul since the 1 Mark 3, but I guess they must be making enough money from professional photographers and YouTubers. I can't see any other reason to buy them. I had the Xperia 1 Mark 2 before they pivoted towards professional photography and let everything else stagnate. And looking even further back than that, Mad Bad Seagulls one says, I miss the days of the Sony Xperia Z series. I had the original and I loved it. Yeah, those Z series smartphones were absolute smashers, and the Xperia XZ series as well, absolutely adored. That XZ3 in burgundy with the curved back. Woof! Trouserial fireworks, my friend. Jacqueline Moulian says, the bezels though, it's 2024 man, come on. Even the Galaxy A55 looks premium as f***. Yep, and people were dissing the good old Pixel 8a for its bezels as well. Dissing, I'm assuming, is a word that nobody apart from all gits uses anymore. So yeah, any young viewers watching, what is the 2024 equivalent of dissing? Please, your Uncle Spurt needs some assistance here. Next up, Marion Roper says, they really need to do something with these names because it's getting quite ridiculous. I do wonder how long Sony is going to stick with the whole Xperia 1, Mark 1, Mark 2, etc. convention. Like, seriously, in 10 years' time, are we going to be sat here chatting about the Xperia 1 Mark 16? If I was Sony Mobile, I'd probably just go absolutely balls out for the next generation, make it like the final hurrah. I'd try and fix absolutely everything that people constantly bitched and moaned about, and then I'd call it the Xperia F*** you. You don't like our usual smartphone camera app? Well, F*** you. Think our phones are too expensive? Well, f*** you. Oida10000 says, will there be an Xperia 5 Mark 6? Yes. Lewis P75 says, I'm more interested in hearing about My Little Pony than Sony crap, and you know you do too. My lips are absolutely sealed on that one. Void says, will you review the 2 headphone jack DAC Moondrop anime phone? I have absolutely no idea what that is. Sounds intriguing, and also the kind of thing you probably won't get here in the UK. Iramiji says, so quite coincidentally, my Pixel 6a, which I've had since Christmas 22, got bricked literally the day after the Pixel 8a was announced. Now I'm debating if I should get the new Pixel 8a or save a bit with the Pixel 7a for my birthday in July. Well, I did do a marvellous Wii comparison with the Pixel 7a and the Pixel 8a earlier this week. Had my sim slapped in the Pixel 8a all week, and I'm really liking it. The battery life is fantastic on this thing. The performance definitely a bit of a step up as well, but that Pixel 7a is considerably cheaper and it is still a banger. So, you know, more cash for the old birthday bevies. The Bismarck has written us a haiku all about viewer comments. It goes, bollocks, bollocks, balls, 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 bollocks, bollocks, balls. Comments, am I right? You're not wrong, buddy. I better make this the last one of the week as massively out of time. Maxus MV says, I mostly watch these videos to learn the British slang. Well, if you fancy some extracurricular reading, mate, I highly recommend Roger's Profanosaurus from Viz, which is absolutely packed full of smut and innuendo. You'll never believe how many different expressions there are for the old single-barreled custard cannon. So a massive, massive thank you to everyone who not only enjoyed last week's episode, but also hung around long enough to tap a comment in it. Apologies if we didn't quite manage to get to yours, because tons as usual, but definitely please do smash your thoughts and theories and opinions and everything down below, and we'll try and gently jaunt our way through as many of those as possible next weekend. Speaking of next week, what the f*** is next week? So next week, somewhat unbelievably, is episode 200 of Tech Spurt Weekly. People are still watching it, and I'm still alive, so yeah. But clench tight and prepare yourself for a visual and oral experience, the likes of which has never been seen here on YouTube. possibly. You might be wondering what incredible feats I have stored up ready for episode 200. Truth is, I've got absolutely no plans whatsoever if anyone's got any suggestions. In fact, yeah, I owe it to you lovely loyal viewers to steer the course of episode 200, decide what's going to happen in it. That means I don't have to actually bother thinking of anything myself. So let us know your suggestions in the comments below and we'll see if we can make it happen. Just nothing that'll get me arrested again, and preferably nothing that actually costs any money. Besides all of that thrilling stuff, we've also got a Poco launch on Thursday, new Poco phones, So definitely get ready for some more hands-on phony action here on the Spurts. Massive thanks again to everyone for watching this shower of right to the bitter end. Please do have yourselves an absolutely bloody wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on the flip side. Cheers everyone, I love you!